let's get to it. Dude, I thought it would be Ngakwe because he was more of a 3-4 fit, and
Yeah.
Agba is more of a 4-3 end. But I was explaining to the listeners before you came on, we really don't know who Weaver is. We don't know what he's going to do. So maybe he sees Agba in a way we don't, and maybe he uses him in a way we don't imagine. Maybe he thinks he can do more 3-4 end. I'm not sure. But, the unknown of who Weaver is as a full time defensive coordinator is still the unanswered question. So it's hard to kind of predict which direction they're going to go in. And so the easy pick was Ngakwe, but they went Agba. Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. We still don't have the full scope of how Anthony Weaver will want to work his fronts and work this defense. So, yeah, Emmanuel Ogba, that's why he wasn't getting a lot of playing time, is because he's not really a stand up outside linebacker in a 3-4 system. So, Vic Fangio wasn't going to use him that way, or how the Dolphins use a lot of two down linemen with while having the two outside linebackers kind of serve as defensive ends. But I mean, Ogbo was still very productive in the limited snaps that he got. I mean, last year he might have he had to rank really high in sacks per actual snaps, defensive snaps played, because he didn't have a lot of playing time and still had the what was it, 5.5 sacks. So and made plays, was around the ball, interception even. So. Yeah, but ultimately it is Ogba, a reunion for the Dolphins and him after 4 years now, going on a fifth. And then after he got that big contract, but then didn't live up to it once he signed it. There was the out this previous offseason, so the Dolphins stood to save the over 13 million in cap space when they released him, and now they get him back on a small affordable deal, which, as Adam Schefter reported, can get up to 5 million with the incentives.
Yeah. So Chris Greer saves money, by the way,
Yeah.
from Shaq Barrett to this one. Now, let me give you something else. And this is food for thought for all of our listeners also. You're not healthy. You don't have your best pass rushers, your best outside linebacking pass rushers healthy. They're both injured and they're both coming back from serious injuries, and you don't want to rush them. You have two rookies that you drafted that are not necessarily natural defensive ends either. They're actually outside linebackers. Could it be that in this transitional year, again, something was I was explaining to all listeners before you got here, every coach in the history of mankind, in every sport, pretty much, unless you're fucking Barry Switzer, when you take over a team, you don't have everything you need. It usually takes you 2 or 3 years to turn over the rosters and get the people that fit exactly your scheme. And just like Fangio last year got here and did not have what he needed because he took over a different scheme. So all of a sudden the players all don't fit, i.e. Agba, i.e. whatever. We can mention a whole bunch of other players that didn't fit. And so he had to adjust to what he had. So Weaver's going to adjust. So I'm wondering if we'll see more four-man fronts because you have Agba, because you have maybe players of that ilk. Will you try a little bit more stuff and be a little bit more flexible in that sense because you don't have the ammunition you really need to be full-time 3-4, to trust your outside linebackers all the time because they're two rookies that are learning on the fly, all of those kind of things. So I wonder if there'll be a little bit of flexibility there where because you have so many D linemen that you signed, maybe you'll play more four-man fronts at times. I don't know.
Flexibility is the key word that in everything you just mentioned there. Because yeah, sir. So I mean, he takes over a defense after 1 year of Fangio, and it's a constant revolving door with the previous regime's players. But there was a lot of turnover up front for this team. So all those new D linemen, Anthony Weaver got a lot of guys that can fit in different alignments. Different techniques, three techniques, five techniques, some nose tackles. So a lot of different guys that could line up in different spots on the D line. So with now you have Emmanuel Ogba, who, okay, traditionally a 4-3 defensive end, he'll be on the outside, but like Calais Campbell, is a defensive tackle at this stage of his career, but he's a 5 technique, and he's played defensive end, and he can rush the passer. Granted, yeah, now at an older age, but he can line up in different spots more on the outside. You have a couple of nose tackles in Tier Tart and Benito Jones and Neville Gallimore. Jonathan Harris can be sort of like on the edge of defensive end, defensive tackle. So a lot of options. Deshaun Hand still there. Obviously, Zach Sealer is always going to have a role on that defensive line. So with all those options and how many different ways you can line them up, sure, there could be some 3-4, some 4-3, and Anthony Weaver will have a lot of weapons at his disposal to be able to be flexible.
Yeah, that's what I think we're going, because again, this is a transitional year for Weaver. He's only what he's doing this year is he's figuring out who fits his scheme and who understands it, and then he's also figuring out who he is and how he wants to attack things, how he wants to attack things in his division too, because he's in a new division now, and he's got to figure out also ways to play the teams that he plays 6 times a year every year. So all of these things go into the equation, and they just don't get solved in this off season that just happened. And that's why I'm saying that, it was easy for me in the lazy avenue and say, okay, I'll put my money on Ngakwe because automatically he's 3-4. But if you just went over that whole list. You did a great job of it. And then you add Ogba, you got, okay, all right, maybe you're not going to be 3-4 all the time. Maybe there's going to be a lot of 4-3 here because of all the versatility and all the guys, you got overall. And then here's the other thing, dude. All the guys we're talking about are all in the 5 sack area. You're really not losing a lot in the sack area. You're not gaining a lot either at the same time. So you're kind of getting the same sack production overall. So by losing Shaq and gaining Agba, I would say you're going to stay right around that 4, 5, 6 sack area, 7 sack maybe.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of guys that are going to rotate, and that'll keep them fresh. So a lot of guys that are in the same caliber. So one guy comes off when he needs a blow because he's been on for 3 straight plays, pass rushing at full speed, and then he could come off the field, and you bring someone else who's just as good and is staying fresh. So it's going to be less of like you always saw Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer get up into the 90 percentages of 80 to 90 percentages of snaps within a game. So now, I mean, even Zach Sealer on the inside, he can take a little bit of a step below that to stay fresh. But all those guys on the D line are going to be coming in and out, rotating, staying fresh. And then on the edge, that could be a similar thing. You still want, when they're healthy, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb out there as much as possible, and you want Chop Robinson to get his opportunities and develop. But you knew Shaq Barrett was going to play a huge role before this retirement, so now he's out. Emmanuel Ogba can be that same kind of guy, and luckily for the Dolphins, he was just available right there. And same way, well, you said, yeah, Yannick Ngakoue was the maybe lazy pick because of the 3-4 thing, but also, hey, I mean, Emmanuel Ogba, he's got the familiarity here, so
Yeah.
yeah, in the same way, that was kind of like an easy choice too. Like, all right, we know who you are. You were productive even in a different system where you weren't playing that many snaps. With the snaps he got, he was productive. So, yeah, I mean, he could still fill that void as long as needed, and then rotate and be really effective in limited snaps once everyone's healthy.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And overall, I mean, when we look at the move, uh, I, it ends up working out. Now, not much has changed, but at the same time, we do have to say a little extra urgency for Sealer and for Calais, because it's hard to put a ton of expectations on Chop and Kamara. You know, although in a twisted way, man, I think Kamara's going to surprise people. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's hard to put any expectations on those 2 young kids. But the 2 veterans in Sealer and Calais, man, it's imperative that they have great years, really, because think about it. Until you get Phillips and Chubb back, that's when you get the dynamic pass rushers back. And the dynamic pass rushers will then open it up for everybody else. Without the dynamic pass rushers, it's kind of a blue collar line that has to get after it after the quarterback. So they're all gonna deal with more one on ones and stuff like, and some like Calais and Sealer will have to deal with the few double teams. But once you get Chubb and Phillips back, it can really open things up. But until that happens, dude, a lot of pressure for Calais and for Sealer to come through big, bro.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, I think just the fact that they'll rotate so much, and yeah, I mean, oh,
It's that kind of day.
I'm back.
Okay.
All
It's
right,
that kind
sorry.
of day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but the fact that they'll rotate so much, I think still will take a lot of the pressure off of Calais at least. I think Sealer will have a lot of pressure because he is that guy, the one that they locked into the long term extension. And when the Wilkins thing didn't work out last offseason, he was the one they committed to long term. So yeah, he needs to produce for sure and live up to, even though he got a fairly team friendly deal for how much he produces. Still needs to live up to that billing and be that top guy on the D line. And Calais, I mean, I think at this stage in his career, people would understand if he has a less than productive year, but still, you do have expectations for him because of who he is, how he prepares,
Yeah.
and just how productive he still has been, even going just last season.
Yeah, I still think he can pick up 5 to 7 sacks easily for this team this year. There's no doubt in my mind, and obviously his leadership is through the roof.
Yeah.
By the way, Welt Rheaume, a proud sponsor of our program for many years now. 954-966-4646, man. So many of our listeners have used Welt Rheaume, from house damage, condo damage. It's been business owner claims too, on top of all of that, car accidents, truck accidents, all kinds of different things, man. Listeners living here in South Florida, in Orlando, so they've been calling Welt Rheaume, and we appreciate it. The consultation's completely free. Folks, it's not just about a hurricane anymore. Now we get these brutal storm showers that happen at any moment, and that creates water damage. Or if a pipe bursts and the neighbor next door in the condo or townhouse and it goes over to your home, which has happened to a couple of our listeners, call Welt Rheaume. They send over their adjusters right away, and then they call the insurance company, and you never have to deal with that headache. 954-966-4646. Call Jeff Welch right now. Daniel Rheaume. They will get it done for you. Consultations completely free. 954-966-4646. All right, dude. The Tua contract. What are we doing? What's going on? So at least I think I got this right. We're going into training camp with no deal, right? That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, as long as if you count this as the first day, then now we are into training camp.
Well, it's
Veteran report.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Tomorrow's the
tomorrow,
first
right?
practice. Tomorrow's the first practice.
Yeah.
Today, veteran report day. So that's the date that gets put down on all the league, announcements and everything about when teams report to camp. So I guess, yeah. Do we technically call it today? Are we already in it, or do we call it tomorrow and give them another 24 hours to get it done technically before camp?
Yeah. So
It's up to us.
Jordan Love says he's holding in. I predict Tua will not do any of that. I think he will. He might be a little grouchy.
Yeah.
He might be a little edgy, but I think he's going to like. Okay, well, I'm going to show you that kind of. I think he's that dude. I don't, and plus he's under contract, so he's definitely not going to hold out and pay $50,000 a day. That's not rescindable, if that's a word. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. You can rescind something, so I mean rescindable. I would hope it's
I
one
don't
of those.
know.
You got to just type it out and then see if you get the red line underneath it. Yeah, but now, Jordan Love's though is he holding in or is he holding? I saw he was not going to practice
Right,
at all.
that's right. He's holding in. He's gonna with not do drills and stuff like that. And
To avoid the fines. Okay, I
right,
wasn't sure off of the reports.
I don't think Tua will do that. I don't believe Tua
Yeah,
will do
I
that.
don't think he's going that route. So yeah, as we've mentioned, I feel, yes, he could probably be a little bit upset, a little grouchy to start. Maybe early on, maybe the first few practices, we again see him not doing the 11-on-11 team drills, still do some 7-on-7, the individual stuff, but still sort of have his voice heard, make a little bit of an impact, a little bit of a disruption in practice, but just a tad bit early on, because I think he still would see the benefit of practicing with the team later on into training camp as things get going. So hopefully it comes together maybe in that this first week of training camp. I mean, reports also nationally indicate that that him and the Dolphins aren't even as close as Jordan Love and the Packers. And so that's now, it seems like, so in terms of the progress meter, Love and the Packers have passed them. And there was a point where it was out there that Tua and the Dolphins were closer than Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. And then Trevor and the Jaguars just moved right up and got their deal done. So it seems like the Dolphins and Tua have been a little stagnant over the last few months.
Kind of like our internet. Kind of like everybody's internet today. Stagnant. By the way, you can follow him on Twitter at David Furones _ and subscribe to the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Support my man. All right, what were you finishing up with?
Okay, sorry, I got a call. I'm doing this on my phone, and a call just ruined my connection.
Those bastards! Don't they know you're doing an interview? What's going on here?
Yeah, it was just a random number too. It was not even like
kind of crap is this? Let's go.
Exactly. I don't know, where was I think I was wrapping up my point.
On Tua, yes.
Yeah, I think he would see the benefit of working with his guys eventually, but maybe causing a little bit of a disruption early in camp, and hopefully that would get it done for him. Even though so many other quarterbacks have seemed to pass him in the progress, and the Dolphins and Tua have been a little stagnant in recent months in terms of making more progress toward this deal.
By the way, if you want to really stick it to the team and get the big deal, you stay on the field, you stay sharp. And that way you go out and have a great year, and then you stick it to them and you make them pay you even more. If you do what Jordan Love is doing and you don't have a deal on the table, and then you start the season and you're not sharp because you didn't practice enough, then you put yourself behind the 8 ball and you won't be able to ask for the same kind of money. So I think Tua will be the smart guy, stay on the field, stay sharp, have the best season he's had, and then turn to the Dolphins and say, guess what? You now got to pay me more. And then the Dolphins will then have to capitulate at that point, and they'll be screwed. But they'll be convinced, which is, I guess, what they need.
Yeah, I guess so. I also wonder how much just the competitive nature for these athletes comes into play, because I see for Tua, I would imagine he wants to lock in his deal. He doesn't want to risk it. I mean, he knows as well as anyone, yes, he does have the injury history, even if he didn't make it through last season healthy. So he wants to secure his long-term financial status and maintain that. But does the competitiveness of these athletes kind of get in the way too, and the agents as well, where you look at the Trevor Lawrence on the outside and say, okay, well, now I'm not going to settle for this deal, whatever number. I got to make sure I beat Trevor Lawrence's deal, or at least get his same money. Even if everyone looks at it like the Jaguars overpaid, I got to at least get what he got. I got to at least get what Jared Goff got from the Detroit Lions. So sometimes I wonder if that gets in the way too, because I feel like if you told him if you told him last year you could get, let's say, $49 million per year, and he would have probably been thrilled about it, or 50, but maybe he looks at 49, 50, 51 as, wait, Jared Goff got 53 per, and Trevor Lawrence got 55. So you're saying I'm less than them? Now it sort of gets in your head when you probably would have always loved the 51, 52 the whole time.
Right. All right. Follow him on Twitter at David Furones _ What do you got going on there in the Sentinel, my brother?
Yeah, I was just previewing training camp, actually writing a lot about how they still don't have this Tua deal done. But a season of high hopes and aspirations. The preparation for it begins here at training camp, and then covering the Emmanuel Ogbah news this morning. And we'll have some interviews with a lot of players: Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle, Zach Sealer, and Jordan Poyer. All of them are scheduled to interview with us here on day one, Veteran Report Day.
There you go. All right. There it is. Follow him on Twitter at David Furones_. David, have a good time, my brother. I'll see you this week.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. Thank you.
You got it. There you go. Welt Rheaume 954-966-4646.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.